Hello and welcome back to another episode of Hear the Cannons. I am your host, Colin Hallboom, joined by a couple other members of our team over at BucsGameday, talking about River Wells and Caleb Skinner. As always, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. And before we get into tonight's episode, where we'll be teeing up this weekend's matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the San Francisco 49ers, got to implore everyone to make sure you are checking out and supporting the website, BucsGameday.com, Sports Illustrated's only Bucs website. Make sure you are following us on YouTube, on Twitter at BucsGameday, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, as I just mentioned. But, subscription, turn on the notification so you know when we go live, and you can join in on the conversation. We do 2 episodes a week, 1 instant reaction show after each game, usually with someone in attendance at the game. And then, of course, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, we are there to tee up the upcoming matchup, which is what we're here to do for you this evening. The Buccaneers have lost a ton of players to injury at various points of this 2024 season, and now they've lost 4 out of their last 5 games after a really hot start to the year. Morale is low. The Bucs currently sit below 500 for the first time. They're 4-5, and they're coming off a devastating loss to the Chiefs on Monday night in Kansas City. I got 2 questions of the week. River, I got one custom for you, and I got one custom for Caleb. So, River, I'm going to throw to you first. Please tell us what stopped the Buccaneers from winning this football game, and what a big win it would have been.
Coaching, I think. And that goes for coaching up the defense, which had another, rough game with Patrick Mahomes working as well at the middle of the field. And it goes down to that last decision, which I talked about this on the post-game pod for anyone who listened to that, but you got to go for 2. You got to go for 2 against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs who are better than you, because you want to win it right there and control the game that way, instead of playing more football with the best team in football. You don't want to do that. You want to go for 2 there, and if you don't get it, that's unfortunate, but you try to put the game in your hands from the 2-yard line. And I think I would have respected that a lot more than if they had just played for overtime, which they did. It's the difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. You're essentially going from the 2-yard line, you kick to hope that you get a coin toss to get back to that 2-yard line. So I think really you just got to do it. And not being aggressive enough in that situation is how you lose to worse teams, or to better teams, I suppose. Wet, rainy conditions on the road, you got to try and steal the win there. And I think they didn't do enough to do that.
Caleb, River, before I get to Caleb, what did you think of Todd Bowles' rationale that he explained this week? He talked about the weather being a factor. Do you see any credibility at all to what he's saying there, his logic, or is it a little?
In my eyes, not particularly. They had just driven down the length of the field in that weather, and he mentioned today that it got a little worse, but I don't think that's enough of an excuse. And bad weather makes kicking worse too. It makes kicking a lot harder as well. So having just scored the previous play, I would go to Liam Cohen and say, what's your best play? And then run it. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. But those type of decisions are how you beat teams like the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. And playing extended football with them, I said this in the pod too, I don't know if they would have necessarily won if they had gotten the coin toss first, right? Because you're just extending the game with a team that is just better than you. And it's okay to understand that and know that, and know that to beat that team and get the win and prove that you can do that, I definitely think that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow, and I think Baker's reaction for the coin toss going into overtime when he called tails and it came up heads represented every Bucs fan. But I feel like you just knew they were going to get the ball.
You do, and there's a lot of people that say, we would criticize him just as much if he had failed, and I flat out disagree. I really do. I would have much rather have lost the game that way in regulation, knowing that you put forth your best effort and your best play from the 2-yard line to try and win, then, like you said, Colin, just then, the moment that kicking team tried it out, and I was at home watching it, I'm like, that's it. That's how you lose football games, and that's what you get. That's what the Bucs did. So much rather a team be aggressive for that. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But you put yourself in the best position to win the game, I think. by going for 2 in that situation. So definitely would not have criticized Bowles just as much in my mind.
You know what? I hadn't really thought about that, and I think it's a really great point. Like, had he gone for 2 and failed, would the criticism be ringing as loud? And I don't believe it would either. So I think that's a really, really good point that I hadn't thought of. Caleb, why don't you find some silver lining for us? Because, I mean, they did take the Chiefs to overtime at Arrowhead. Although the Chiefs' offense hasn't been what we've seen in recent years, at least on paper, but the defense has been way better. Still an impressive feat. What is like the biggest positive that can be taken away from that game heading into this weekend's matchup with the Niners?
It's got to be, the Buccaneers offense from all aspects, right? And that starts from the top down, and the top obviously being offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. We've seen what he's been able to do without the likes of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, his 2 star playmakers that vie for those competitive targets. They vie for those early targets to get involved in a game. And being without those 2 guys, Chris Godwin as well as your third down target almost every single play that Baker Mayfield loves to go to. And you're without these guys, and you're having to rely on the likes of Kate Otten, your 2-3 running backs that you have back there, Jalen McMillan obviously being out last game as well. So you're relying on Sterling Shepard and Trey Palmer and Rakim Jarrett and Ryan Miller getting involved as well last game, being able to get these guys into open spots and being able to produce at maybe a slightly lower level than if Mike and Chris were in there, but still being able to put up, 24, 26 points in your last 2 games says a lot about Liam Cohen as an offensive play caller. He's being able to get creative. He's keeping defenses on their toes. And this wasn't, the Carolina Panthers that the Buccaneers are going against, right? Like, this was the Kansas City Chiefs defense who has pretty much kept them in every single game that they've been in this year for them to reach 7-0 by the time the Buccaneers met them. So you gave them probably one of the better challenges that they've had all year on the offensive side of the ball. So there's promise there. There's guys out there that are willing to step up and make these plays because Liam Cohen's able to put him in a position to do so. Then talking about the rest of the offense, Baker Mayfield, no turnovers. So that was really something that we had talked about prior to the Chiefs games, that Baker had 7 interceptions over the course of 3 games, which you cannot have happen, especially with, Chris and Mike going down and you're trying to keep your team in the game. Obviously, as River talked about, the defense isn't helping Liam and Baker Mayfield at all on that side of the ball. So you're going to have to score points, and you have a very limited amount of drives in the game, right? Then the limited number of possessions in a game. And then you add into factor the weather conditions. Todd Bowles wanted to talk about how, the weather had an impact on him calling a timeout late in the game down there. The guys were flustered and why he didn't want to go for 2, but your offense just drove all the way down the field in that same weather. So I don't really see why that was a thing for him, but back to the offense anyways. Liam Cohen did a masterful job, especially on that last drive that the Bucs absolutely needed. Their wide receivers, their young guys hadn't really stepped up all throughout the game. Here and there they did, but towards that end where they needed that one drive, they stepped up. You saw him go to Palmer. You saw Sterling Shepard make an absolutely incredible play on a badly thrown ball. So it's promising, like they could have an opportunity because the 49ers defense still good, but not necessarily up to the level that I see Kansas City's defense has. So I think you can kind of utilize that to your advantage. Now, whether or not you're going to still be able to trick them with the creativity that you've had, I'm not sure, because now they've been able to put it on film for 2 games in a row. So, but it is the bright light in what has been kind of a very dark skid of late on the Buccaneers.
Yeah, there's no way around it. I mean, and nor should there be. Liam Cohen has been, you said it, masterful. He has had an incredible debut season calling the shots for the Buccaneers offense. They're 5th in the league in scoring, top 10 in rushing yards, top 5 in passing yards per game. But they're also playing a really good offense led by one of the brightest offensive minds in the game, in Kyle Shanahan, who is leading an offensive attack that is top 5 in passing, top 4 in rushing. And a little bit behind the Bucs in terms of points scored per game, but still 6th overall with just over 26 points a game. So, Caleb, I'm going to stick with you. I want you to tell us a little bit, or tell us what we can expect when this Todd Bowles defense that has looked so vulnerable against arguably less potent offenses than what they're about to face in San Francisco. What can we expect from that matchup?
Yeah, so you think about it, Kyle Shanahan and that offense has become really the talk of the NFL over the past few years or so. The branches that he is being able to spread through, the routes he is being able to spread through the NFL around the league, as well as in college football as well, is wide reaching. So it's a run first West Coast offense. First and foremost, it's not pass first West Coast. So a little bit more running style there, which is why you've seen Jordan Mason do pretty well without Christian McCaffrey back there, since they have a very strong unit along the trenches there up front. A lot of 21 personnel. They run it the second most in the entire league. So you're going to see a lot of 21 there from them. And then obviously this is where it comes in, where you're going to see a lot of pre-snap motion. They run pre-snap motion, the second highest in the league as well. A lot of at-snap motion, which is Rivers' baby there as well. So it's kind of a blend of a lot of eye candy, tricking the defender's eyes to be able to get certain position players in a position to be able to make a play, which is what they're really good at doing, which they have a number of different guys that are able to be utilized in that way. It's not just a Christian McCaffrey. It's not just Deebo Samuel. With those two guys out to begin the year, you saw Jawan Jennings just kind of going off before he got injured as well. I know both Jawan and Deebo are questionable in this one. I have a feeling that Deebo likely will come back after being out 2 weeks before their bye week, and coming off of that, he should be ready to go. Then you add in Brandon Ayuk. He's not with them right now. He's going to be out for the rest of the season with his injury. So you're looking at maybe a little lesser of a lethal offense, but if they are able to, activate Christian McCaffrey, which seemingly that is what is going to happen, then that's what you're going to have to pay attention to, is all their weapons: Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. If Jawan Jennings comes back, he's going to be that second wide receiver. And then Ricky Pearsall is starting to come on and finally come back from his offseason, mishap that unfortunately happened to him. So he's still trying to get back into a rhythm, but they still got these guys. And then yet alone, Jordan Mason, again, he has been very good filling that void for Christian while he's been out of the game. And Brock Purdy, all he needs to continue to do is be Brock Purdy, and then add in the fact of George Kittle too, which we know that the Buccaneers can't really do anything against opposing tight ends. It's a weekly thing. It's not something that's really fun to joke about anymore. It was laughable for a while, but at this point, it's not. And then there's too many guys here ultimately for the Bucs defense to really have to be able to stop and slow down, mix it in with what Kyle Shanahan is able to do on the offensive side of the ball, being as versatile as they are, being able to move the ball around in so many different facets, just creates a ton of problems. And with the way Todd Bowles' defense has looked as of late, I don't think it's going to fare very well for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and it does look like Christian McCaffrey is going to make his much anticipated return. You never know how that might work, right? Because Jordan Mason, when he's been in the lineup himself, has been a real weapon for them. So I'm curious to see how they balance the usage of those two guys in this game. Sometimes it can throw you off when you're trying to bring a guy back and still feed the hot hand for you. So we'll see how Shanahan manages those guys' usage, because as you mentioned, run game is huge for them in terms of setting up the pass, or at least working off the pass, vice versa. So on the defensive side of the ball, River, San Francisco's got one of the best defensive players in the NFL, obviously, who's the leader of their defense, talking about Fred Warner. What are they going to do on that side of the ball? And do they have the makeup to be a team to slow down this Liam Cohen offense, even without the big dogs in the lineup, talking about Chris Godwin and Mike Evans? Sorry, River, you muted there, buddy.
On it. I think a lot of teams have had a problem with that, honestly. The Chiefs were probably going to be the best defense that the Bucs play all year, and Bucs managed to move the ball on them, score some points. So they're going to have the opportunity to do that against the 49ers, but it's not going to be easy. We talked to Baker Mayfield today at One Buck Place, and he mentioned those edge rushers, guys like Nick Bosa, guys like Leonard Floyd. It's brutal up on that front. So keeping them contained is going to be step one. And then Fred Warner, if someone could win Defensive Player of the Year every year, Fred Warner's a good candidate. Phenomenal player. Always going to be a pain to play against. And they got to know where he is at all times. And he's going to get his. So that's something to watch out for sure. According to team rankings here, they do pretty well in both aspects. They're a really good rushing defense. They're top 10 in just about every metric. And the Chiefs were really good against the rush too, but the Bucs still got the ground game going there. So good thing to note there. And they're in about an average passing defense. Pass yards per game, they give up 209. That's about 14th. So just above average. Really, that's going to be the avenue, and the Bucs are really good at that. So Liam Cohen's going to attack him through the air. Hopefully he'll have some guys like Jalen McMillan ready. If not, then you roll with Ryan Miller, who you had last time, and you go from there.
So, River, I want to stick with you. What do you think would be the biggest advantage for the Buccaneers in this game if they have one? It could be a player-on-player matchup, could be a coaching thing, schematics, whatever you think. What's the biggest advantage for the Bucs?
It's Tampa Bay's third down conversion rate, which is excellent. Per team rankings right now, they convert on third down at 51.82%. Their offense, it's second in the league. So that's fantastic. Meanwhile, defending against third down, the 49ers give up 44.12%. They're 25th in the league on that down. So attacking them on third down, getting the third and manageable. Liam Cohen himself has personally said around 3rd and 7 is what he likes, which is actually pretty far out if you ask me. But getting a third and manageable in those situations, your 3rd and 5s, your 3rd and 4s, your 3rd and 3s, and attacking them at that point, that's going to be a step to moving the ball down the field and getting points. So attacking that, making sure that when you do get in those areas, you're tight, your play calls are great, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you'll move the ball in that case. So I think it's a pretty big advantage.
For sure. Caleb, what about the disadvantage? I mean, obviously the Bucs are shorthanded. A lot of their defense has been just abused in recent weeks. What's the biggest disadvantage in this matchup?
Considering with how lethal, we know the 49ers offense can be, they like to score early and then just kind of, maintain that momentum throughout the game on a play-by-play basis. They face a lot of man zone as well, from I think probably the second highest rate in all of the league. So, which is something that Todd Bowles doesn't necessarily always go to unless he is maybe blitzing here and there. So that would be something to definitely keep an eye on. But coming back here to your question, Colin, with that being said, is that the biggest disadvantage here for the Buccaneers is going to be their coverage. It's going to be in their secondary. They are going to, not necessarily just the secondary, but coverages as a whole, because you do have to send out, a linebacker out there in coverage, whether that's on a guy who's coming out of the backfield or, a tight end that's slipping out. So coverage as a whole is going to be a challenge. It's something that has plagued the Buccaneers over the past few weeks since Jamel Dean went down. And then obviously with the lackluster play of KJ Britt and, even with JJ Russell getting some snaps here and there, it doesn't really seem to have improved no matter what type of personnel you're putting in there. So the coverage is going to be where it's going to be tough. Christian McCaffrey is probably the best back at catching the ball out of the backfield. You're talking, we know what Rachaad White can do. It's the same thing, but even probably more elite, being able to shed tackles in space as well. So covering him out of the backfield, covering George Kittle over these seam routes or sitting down in the zone, you're going to need guys that are going to be able to stick to him like glue. And then you throw in the fact that they have wide receivers that are just very versatile in their own right. Jawan Jennings, probably more seen as a go guy or go up and get it ball type of guy instead of a route runner, but he's got strong hands. He catches balls. He's proven that he can route run and make plays. Ricky Pearsall, we saw what he was able to do at the University of Florida. Deebo Samuel, he's a scat back, pretty much kind of that H-back type of player that you saw back at the high school level and even at the college level and at some places with him being able to play the wide receiver and running back position. So the Bucs are going to be tested and their coverage is going to have to step up. having Josh Hayes and Tyreek Thunderberg haven't, lived up to any of the expectations that Todd Bowles has placed on them. So the loss of Jamel Dean was kind of tough at this moment as well. Maybe we thought the Buccaneers would do something at the trade deadline at cornerback, maybe create a little bit more depth there in that position, but it ended up happening. They're going to ride what they got. Hopefully Jamel Dean is back sooner rather than later, but it's going to be up on the coverage this week. It's the Bucs' biggest disadvantage. And if they want to win this game, your biggest disadvantage is going to have to just reach their foundation again. Get back to where you can communicate, and that's lost in the shuffle is Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. haven't been able to make the plays that, you're kind of used to them making because they're having to, kind of clean up those garbage guys because they know that they can't over pursue a play or take themselves out of their position because it can be utilized against them. And that's just not a lot of trust in the guys that you're playing with, and not a lot of familiarity with the guys you're playing with. And that also brings in lack of communication. So these guys are going to have to be on their P's and Q's in this one. But it is the Bucs' biggest disadvantage here against the 49ers.
Yeah, and if you are a loyal follower of BucsGameday and or Hear the Cannons, you would know all too well that cornerback depth was a hot topic coming into this season. We spoke ad nauseum regarding our concerns related to the lack of depth at that position. And I don't mean to pile on a guy in his first NFL start, but by golly, Josh Hayes got absolutely abused in this game. And that was tough to watch. And I think you bring up a good point.
Two touchdowns he gave up to DeAndre Hopkins and probably could have had a third if Xavier Worthy would have came down with that ball. So,
yeah, and I think you brought up a good point about the safeties. Like, if they're trying to cover other mistakes and they can't trust the guys on the outside, at least one of them, because Zion's been just absolutely lights out this year. It's been incredible to watch. But I want to ask a more specific question to you, River, and that is, do you think the Bucs post-bye week schedule, which of course, for anyone who doesn't know, is very manageable compared to the schedule we've seen thus far, does that softening of the schedule make it acceptable if they lose this game, or is this a team that just needs this win against the 49ers at home to reignite confidence heading into and out of their bye?
So here's the thing about this. Right now, the Bucs are 4-5. The 49ers are 4-4. If you take a look at the playoff standings as they are, the Bucs are the 11th seed and the Niners in the 9th seed. The Falcons are 6-3 and they're 2 games ahead of Tampa Bay. You're probably not going to win the division this year, especially because Atlanta's schedule after Tampa Bay's bye is also not super bad. You're already 2 games in the hole. Do you need to win this game? No. But if you lose it, you basically can lose like 1 game after this, and you'll go like 9-8. And that's probably not going to be enough to make the playoffs. In fact, if you look at the NFL's own playoff probability calculator, right now the Bucs have a 43% chance to make the playoffs under this calculator. If they lose, they have a 33% chance. If they win, it goes up to 64. So not to say that you explicitly need to, because this is a game that was kind of a scheduled loss for most people, but this is a team you're going to have at home who's going to be one of your main competitors for that wild card spot. And the Bucs already have a tiebreaker over the Commanders. They already have a tiebreaker over the Eagles. They already have a tiebreaker over the Lions. Lions are probably going to win their division. Commanders might too. One of the two for Eagles, Commanders. You're going to have to, if you really want to be serious about this and you really want to make the playoffs, this would be a huge game to win because that's one of your wild card competitors right there. And you're still going to face the Bears. The Rams might make a push. But it's not, you don't control your destiny anymore, but you can try. And this is a way that you can definitely try. So, I mean, it's going to be really hard. I don't have the Bucs winning this game. The 49ers are a more talented team. But if you can get to 5-5 before this bye week, you're going to be in a lot better shape than if you were 4-6, simply put, because they're in the same position that they were in last year. They were 4-7 last year, and they won almost every game after that. But will Lightning strike twice there? I don't know, especially with the worst defense. So This is the big one. Baker Mayfield said as much today on the podium. He said, this is a big one. We know that. Not to make the game bigger than it is, but we understand the ramifications of this one. And we'll see how it goes. But you want to win this one, I think.
Sure would have been nice to steal one in Kansas City. Sure would have been.
Sure would have been. Now, that's an AFC game, too, though, at the same time.
Yeah,
That's back to the Baltimore Ravens topic, too.
Right, but this is an NFC game this is a team that you could be, if it comes down to it at the end of the year, this could be a team that you have a tiebreaker with.
Great point. Very good point. Okay. I want to throw each of you a bet for the game, and you can kind of tell me where you're putting your money, hypothetical money. Caleb, I'll start with you. The early line on this game is the San Francisco 49ers are favored by 6 points on the road. With how they sticking with KC, I don't know. Is that too much, man? We're in Tampa. River just talked about how important this game is to the Bucs. What do you think about that line, Bucs +6 at home?
It's probably, just thinking about it first and foremost, it's probably right on par for where it should be, considering the Bucs are at home. You have San Francisco coming over 3 time zones to play a game on the road. Christian McCaffrey might be a little bit rusty, even though he is ready to come back. Deebo Samuel, not sure quite how healthy he is. Juwan Jennings, not quite sure how healthy he is. The Bucs have looked good up against Kansas City on the road. Now they return home. The mix with Baker, it's tough to say. If I could buy 1.5 here and get that line up to or +7.5 for the Bucs, I would take it. But with it just being at 6, I think I would take San Francisco -6 as the favorites here. Even with the Bucs being able to keep it close, I think eventually they would give that one up and not end up winning. And I don't want to give away my score quite yet because I have a feeling you're going to ask me that later, Colin. So yeah, if I could buy 1.5 here, I'd take Bucs +7.5. But if I have it at +6, I'm not going to take it, and I would ride with the Niners.
Okay. Gives us a little bit of foreshadowing as to what your score prediction will be then. River. Baker Mayfield, man, one thing he's doing this year is he is tossing tutties. And his line, like 1.5 is the line for touchdown passes. More than 1.5. If you take the over, you can get that at almost even money, -105. You going over? Is that going to happen, or could it be a different game plan, or just running into the Niners D can't maintain that type of momentum through the air? What do you think?
Well, the last time Baker Mayfield threw less than 2 touchdown passes, it was September 22nd versus the Broncos. And in his last 6 games, he's thrown more than 2 of 4 of them. So, Kansas City, he threw 2. And then Eagles, he threw 2. But otherwise, 3, 4. So easy for me. Hammer the over on that one. He's done it. He has not stopped doing it for a long time. He is baking in Liam Cohen's system. And let the man continue to bake. I'm taking the over.
Speaking of bacon, are you going to include that? I wonder in your best bets coming up. I wonder if that'll make it. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
You'll have to read to find out.
I got a great bet. I got a great bet for River for his best bets.
Why don't you throw it my way, Caleb? Why don't you do that?
Cade Otton anytime touchdown.
What is it?
No, I'm not sure what the odds are. Colin, you got odds pulled up there?
I can get them pulled up pretty quick here, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I included it in my last best bets. It was Cade Otton anytime touchdown. It was positive odds. It was plus odds. It had easy money.
If there's anything we know about River, it's that he doesn't like to recycle, though. He likes to keep things fresh.
Oh no. No. If the bets are there, the bets are there. Now
he's only
Chris
one.
Godwin was cooking. There was a time when it was the Chris Godwin show for best bets, and unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. But if they're gonna keep giving us plus odds on Cade Otton anytime touchdown, we'll keep taking advantage of it.
Oh, you're getting plus odds, buddy. George Kittle's plus 140, for example, but Cade Otton's plus 162.
Easy money. Last 2 games, Cade Otton's been stellar. He's gotten into the end zone. He's become a focal point of this offense without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Take it all day long. All day long. That's going to be in my best bets. I'll tell you right now, America, that's going to be in my best bets. It's going to happen.
We have listeners north of the border as well, River. I'd prefer if you.
I'm going to tell you right now, Canada and surrounding provinces, it's going to be in my best bets. Absolutely.
Nice. All right, Caleb, you already alluded to it, man. Let's get your score prediction for this game. Give us a specific number. And no, you can't buy any extra 1.5 for this exercise.
Well, it's gonna fall into that category anyways, because I have the San Francisco 49ers winning 28-21 in Tampa Bay on Sunday.
River, how about you?
I'm gonna be worse than that. I think it's gonna be 34-24. It'll be a 10-point game. But I think the 49ers are going to put up some serious points. I think their offense is better than the Kansas City Chiefs offense is. And they might have Christian McCaffrey back. They might have Deebo Samuel back. This defense is not good. It's not good. And this 49ers team has the better ability to take advantage of that than even the Chiefs did, I think. So George Kittle might face a lot of weapons there. I don't know if the team's going to be disciplined enough and communicative enough to go against that, especially with the same inside linebacker situation. So 49ers put up a lot of points in this one.
Yeah, I've got San Fran winning as well by a lesser margin than you two, though. I got the final score being 31-28 in favor of the bad guys, the road team. Kyle Shanahan, just like Sean McVay and Zach Robinson, seem to have Todd Bowles' number. And, man, that is just becoming such a theme. No matter what opponent we talk about, I feels like our defense, like, of course the injuries matter, but this is the NFL. Everyone's injured. The coaching is, I think, at this point holding them back. At least it's pretty objective. It's holding them back on that side of the ball. So I just can't see Todd Bowles finding a way to overcome a Kyle Shanahan led offense. I shouldn't say can't see, but at least for the sake of these predictions, I'm not willing to put my name behind that.
Of course.
So that's where we are on that. So there you have it. Thank you, everyone who has joined us for this evening's show. Please, again, make sure you are visiting BucsGameday.com. Sports Illustrated's only Bucs website covering the Buccaneers specifically. We have numerous reporters down there covering practices, training camp in the offseason, at multiple guys at every game. We're doing live instant reaction episodes from the field, and we are pumping out a ton of content throughout the week. So anything you need, we got it if it is related to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right. And on that note, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you after the game on Sunday. Until then, go Bucs.